and everybody was there. All the France clan was there. Everybody was there.
Now, I'm going to tell you the story about the worst thing I ever did behind the microphone at Bowman Gray.
Well, I got plenty of those.
And no, you can't beat this one, I promise you. And
I know. I know what you're going to say.
You know where I'm going with this. And for the folks that are younger, I covered cup racing for 7 years. I was in the big leagues. I was a photographer. I wrote newspaper and magazine store. A lot of my magazine stores I had to use a fake name because I worked for one guy and I was doing work for other folks, and I didn't want to have my byline.
You worked for Hank.
I worked for Hank Schoolfield at Southern Motor Racing. But I wrote stuff for other people under different names. So I've been published all over the country. But where I was going with this story, Ernie Irvan had a really, really bad crash at Michigan, and Ernie was critically injured and went to the hospital, and there were many reports that night while we were racing at Bowman Gray that Ernie had passed away. And I finally, and I'm not going to name the person, I don't want to blame them, but I had someone, a confidant that I really trusted that, was well connected, come up to me and tell me Ernie Irvan has passed away at the hospital. And almost without flinching, I just emotionally got on the microphone during a caution and told the crowd at Bowman Gray Stadium that Ernie Irvan had passed away in the hospital at Michigan. And you talk about taking a pin and popping the balloon and letting the air out of the room, so to speak. That crowd just, as you can imagine, everybody there was just, some people were almost in tears. And obviously, I was wrong. Number one, I was wrong. Ernie Irvan didn't die, okay? And I was wrong, even if he did. I learned a very valuable lesson, Tim, that people come to Bowman Gray Stadium, they don't want to hear about politics. They don't want to hear about what's going on in the news. They don't want to think about their mortgage, their car payment, their kids showing their butt, fight with their spouse. They don't want to think about anything. That's their way of going and escaping the world and having fun and yelling and screaming and just having a big old time for a few hours and forgetting about the world. And I violated the cardinal sin of announcing by announcing some current events or news that obviously wasn't correct. And that was the bigger mistake. And I really learned from that.
Well, I wasn't there that night, but I do remember you.
Oh, man. I didn't live that one down for a long time.
The repercussions of the folks going, as I recall, there were souvenir trucks at the stadium.
Right.
That had Ernie Irvan merchandise.
Right.
And people ran up there and bought it.
Yeah, I did not get any kickbacks from the souvenir
no
truck,
kickback,
okay?
No kickback, but people went up there and bought it. Then they got home and found out that it wasn't.
Oh, Randy was wrong.
That you were wrong.
And I'm really sorry if anybody did that. Well, like I said, though, the biggest thing that I learned, though, was when you're behind that microphone, we don't talk about anything else going on in the world but Bowman Gray Racing. That's why we're there. We're there to add to the entertainment and the show for the people, and I try to do that with these crazy outfits. Some of my colorful phrases. You had a lot of great colorful phrases as well. And it was a lesson learned for a young guy, and I never forgot it. Now, I'll finish that story by saying that I had an opportunity down the line to announce some races for Jared Irving, and Jared is the son of Kim and Ernie.
Right.
And I told that story to the Irvins, and Ernie's wife, she just busted out laughing. She was not mad in the least, and she just looked me dead in the eye and said, "Randy, it's okay. A lot of people thought we'd lost Ernie.
Yeah. It's
perfectly fine. You're forgiven. Don't worry about it one bit." And I felt at ease about it after that. And Ernie's a really good guy, and I'd covered Ernie, and when he came up the ladder, like at the Big Ten Series at Concord and other short tracks, and got to know him during my time as one of the voices of North Wilkesboro Speedway.
Right.
And just a great guy, and I apologize again to Ernie and his family and all the fans at Bowman Gray, but I really screwed up that night, and I learned a valuable lesson.
Yeah, like you said, folks come there, the stadium.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of folks there that when the stadium season ends, that's done. That's it for racing for the year. They don't keep up with the Cup. They don't keep up with trucks, Xfinity, whatever.
Yeah.
That's who they keep up with, is their hometown heroes at the stadium. The guys they see at K&W, or the guys they see at the Krispy Kreme or McDonald's or whatever. That's their guy. That's their guy they keep up with. And they keep, like people do with Cup. They keep up with them fervently. I mean, T-shirts and all that good stuff. I mean, just like Cup, and on a lower level. Right. But they don't even keep up.
I was going to ask you too. What was the most joyous, heartwarming thing that you saw during your time at Bowman Gray? The thing that you was like, man, that makes it all worthwhile seeing something like that. Because I've seen a lot of great things happen there too.
Well, I think there's a group of folks that they don't get enough credit, and that's the Ladies Auxiliary.
I'll go along with that.
And when the money they raise for scholarships and the Victory Junction Gang, and at one time it was a home for
They
boys.
have a battered women's shelter
Yeah.
project that they participate in as well, which is a great cause.
The amount of work they do for that, and they don't get paid.
They don't get a dime.
They don't get, and when they put on the banquet every year,
Yep.
it's them.
Yeah.
It's no one else.
And they do a great job.
And they need to, I was really, really giving them a shout out every time I had a chance to do it, especially when they started the T-shirt shoot.
Right.
That was my really big opportunity. But when they gave the scholarships, and when they do the banquet, and when they had the golf tournaments, and they come on Saturday morning and they have drinks and stuff for practice.
And I'm going to tell you, that comes in handy to be able to grab a Gatorade if you're
a
over there.
lot
It's
of
really
folks
hot.
don't realize those guys come in and practice on Saturday morning.
Yep.
They go back home, get them some, get them some lunch, supper, sit down for a little bit, and then they're back at it. They're back in the garage area,
Yep.
pit area.
Yep.
They're back there ready to rock and roll, and they probably were up at 5 or 6, getting, working on that car. But those are the heroes, that come,
I agree.
they race at the stadium, and we talk about the guys that came through there, like Richard Petty. I was there when he won his 100th race. Bobby Allison raced there. Ralph Earnhardt raced there. You look down the program.
Yeah.
The guys that won races.
Many of the first dozen or so that were elected to NASCAR Hall of Fame, they had a direct tie to Bowman Gray Stadium. And that's part of what makes it so much fun for me, because I have a real affinity for the history of the sport. I just did some videos on Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s passing, and Richard Childress' first and only Grand National win that didn't count, but he still won.
He still won.
He
got
did,
the trophy.
exactly.
He got the trophy.
And
he
he's
got the money.
probably the most famous graduate of Bowman Gray,
Yeah.
if you will. Tim, you had a long run, missed one show in all those years. You got to the 2012 season, and did you let them know at the last race, or did you decide over the winter? That was it. You quit. You left. You left on your own terms. Why did you leave?
Well, I tell you, I worked at UPS for 37 years. I drove.
What'd you do there?
Well, I worked part-time when I was in college, and then I stayed and started driving one of those brown trucks.
Yeah, man.
And drove for 32 years.
Wow.
And going up and down those steps, and I would lose 4, 5 pounds on Saturday night when it was really
right.
when it was
Between
warm.
the suits and running up and down the steps, I would
And
lose.
you wear more clothes than I did.
would lose between 6 and 10 pounds, depending on what time of year it is. No joke. I would drop 6 to 10 pounds every Saturday night. So you could tell, obviously, right now the suit fitting a little snug. We hadn't had a race in a while.
But you go up and down those steps, and it was just becoming something. I said, I have to still work at UPS because I've got a house and cars and a wife and things to take care of, and I had commitments to do that, and I was just getting where I couldn't handle it anymore.
So physically, you were just worn out.
It just even though, like you said, you and I did it.
Yeah.
By ourselves for
a long time. We had no assistant. For my first run, I had no assistant, no help, and I didn't feel like I needed it. And as the job went on, there were more and more announcements,
more responsibilities,
more things to do, and it got to a point where the management felt like you needed a helper, and it was probably a pretty good call. And the other thing there is it put a person in place that got familiar with everything,
just in case.
In the event that me or you, and for 1 year, Robert Collins, and hey, Robert, for whatever reason we couldn't be there, there was an understudy, if you will, just like I had in the theater. There was an understudy who was ready to rumble.
Neat thing about Robert is he actually drove one of those cars.
He did.
So
he had a little better perspective on things than we did at times.
The next time I drive a race car will be the first time. So I had to understand that these guys have got great talent. That racetrack is tough. And you go diving into that the first turn down there, and with all those people around, whether you're driving a stadium stock or modified,
it's really hard.
It's tough.
I had an opportunity one Saturday morning. Junior Miller let me drive his modified car, and he had 2 cars there, and I drove the second car, which raced a lot. They did a start and park with that car, and that car actually won at Bowman Gray too back in the day. And I had an opportunity to drive that car, and I'm going to tell you what, the couple things that stand out. I remember the first time I really got on the accelerator, it pinned the back of my neck against the headrest, and I literally could not move my head. That's how much raw horsepower those things have. And then the other thing that made it really remarkable was the peripheral vision that you have with that full face helmet on, how little you can actually see out of the side. So you had to, you gained a real respect for, you know, the sheer power of those cars, how dangerous they are, how fast they are, and how talented those drivers and spotters have to be to work together and make it work. And you know, the other thought that came to mind, I had Ralph Brinkley, who is going to be on this program. Ralph had one eye, and Ralph won 63 modified races, 1 Goodies Dash Series race, 8 championships with one eyeball. So imagine taking your hand, and I'm trying to remember which eye is bad, Ralph, but taking your hand and putting it over one eye and trying to drive at Bowman Gray Stadium, my hat's off to Ralph Brinkley.
It's hard to do an eye test at the eye doctor.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit. But, I mean, it's hard with one eye. You're going, hey, you know, they tell you to cover one eye, much less drive a race car, you know, average, what, when he was running around 64, 65 mile an hour, that's an average. So
yes.
you're running about
almost 100 mile an hour down straightaway.
Yeah, you're really getting on it. And I was there when the first 12 was ran.
I get a lot of questions from fans all over the place all the time, and you know, one of the big questions that I get is, you know, I believe the outcome of the races are predetermined, just like the WWE. You and I sat there, we watched qualifying, the scoring folks are right below us, the clock for the qualifying times right below us, and please, you can back me up on this, Tim. Whatever time shows up on that little machine, that's what we announce, and that's what goes in the books. It's not predetermined.
Nah.
The draws they do, they're just little chips with numbers on there. It's totally at random. There is no orchestrated effort by anybody that we know of, such and such can win. There's,
yeah.
you know.
Now, when there's a big surprise, you wonder sometimes.
Yeah.
But no, the folks. I mean,
it's on the up and up.
It's on the up and up.
And it's very, very professionally ran there.
Oh,
you and I both have had our differences with the management in the past over things,
yeah.
And that's because we're so passionate about it and we care about it. And you know, if we have an opinion, we're both vocal guys. That's what got us where we are. We may express our opinion, and that's the end of it. But much, much respect to the management of Bowman Gray Stadium. Whether you like them or whether you don't, folks, they have done a tremendous job of keeping that place alive, keeping it vibrant, healthy, and they have, you know, they get a show done quickly and get people home. They're entertained. The price is right. The parking is free. They do a hell of a job over there, really.
They really understand their audience. They know who they are. They understand that, you know, 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours is about the limit for people sitting at one place. They keep the show going. You know that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That was one of the things we were getting in our ear all the time. Come on, man. Let's go. Let's go.
Oh,
yeah.
You know.
There may be a rain. There was a rain cloud over there, Louisville, man. We need to get going. Let's go.
And the curfew issue was
right.
When other places, I mean, they may run to 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, they're just getting warmed up at some tracks at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
People like to know when you start and when you finish.
Right.
Especially now. The way everything, I mean, you got this smartphone in your
microwave
pocket.
society.
I mean,
yeah.
And they want to know. I've heard so many people say, "Well, why don't they start at 6? Or why don't they start at?" If they'd have started at 7, they'd have got it all in. You know, when we have. Right. And where you really feel bad is when you get enough of the show in to be an official night, but then other guys don't get.
Not
the
everybody
race.
gets the race. Yeah,
and
we hate that.
I hate that.
And I know you hustled and I hustled, and sometimes I like to talk like all the time, but I know we did our best to keep it moving, and so we could get as many races in it possible. And I've always been aware of that.
But
that's part of the job.
Every promoter, you know, in the weekly racing world, whether it be NASCAR or whatever, they look at that model over there and they see how they do it. They see how they keep the price. You know, you can't do anything.
It was $10 forever, and it finally went up to 12.
Yeah, went to 12,
which is still a deal.
And I remember the city wanted to start charging for parking. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Oh, I heard about that.
And they showed, the fans showed up at the city council meeting at the time they were aldermen.
Yeah.
They showed up in droves.
Yeah.
And let them know.
They shut that down pretty quick.
They shut it down pretty quick. They're, you know, but that shows you the passion they had for it. And think of the 2 television shows that I was involved in, then you were involved in, that they did.
Actually, I was not.
Yeah, you were not involved in that one.
I missed out.
You missed that one.
And you're probably wondering, well, Randy, why did you leave?
Why were you gone on that? I mean, that was
knew he
perfect.
was gonna ask
That
me
was
that.
perfect for that.
Well, first of all, I didn't know they were going to film that show in 2018.
Right.
And thank you, Robert Collins, for stepping in. And Robert had a
did
tough
great.
job because he
Yeah.
had to follow in your shoes and mine. And I'm going to tell you, that's double trouble right there. And he did a great job. And I know Robert's watching this. And, you know, I enjoyed working with Robert. And I know you worked with him some. And Robert got called to go into the ministry, which is obviously way more important than anything we can do at that racetrack.
Yeah.
So amen and amen to Robert Collins. Well, I'm going to tell you why I left in 2018, okay? And it goes back to the 2017 season. I had some special guests in the audience one night, and some of them came all the way from Las Vegas.
Wow.
Some of them came from Toronto, and some of them came from Germany. And they were there. I'm not going to mention his name. I've got a good friend. He's been in the circus business since he was 17, 18 years old. He's from North Carolina. And these folks were looking to put together a replacement because they knew about the deal at Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey. They knew it was going down. They knew it was going to be leaving. And they wanted to have a tented circus to run all the smaller towns like your Lexingtons and Thomasville's, towns of that size, and then they wanted to follow the Ringling model and go into your Greensboro Coliseums, your RBC centers, and places like that with a larger show. So I had the opportunity, and man, you talk about being humbled, I had the opportunity to audition for one of the largest entertainment groups, not in the United States, not North America, but in the world. And I made, out of almost 500-600 people, I made the final 8. And it was quite an honor. And, you know, I had a thrill of a lifetime. I had the opportunity. Now, it was empty. There was nobody there but a handful of people. But we got the opportunity to audition at the big daddy of all the arenas in the United States, Madison Square Garden. And, man, you talk about a thrill for a little boy from Southside to stand up there and, ladies and gentlemen, you know, and do the opening spiel. And I had to sing a song. You know, Lewis and Tim aren't the only singers here, folks. I had to sing a song. They had an original piece that we had to sing a couple verses of. And then I had the opportunity to sing, and I picked, what song do you think I would pick?
No earthly idea.
I sang Pure Imagination, Willy Wonka. And that was my audition song. Well, as it turned out, I knew there was an opportunity in 2018 for me to win one of those jobs.
Right.
I knew that was in the balance. I'd also had the opportunity to go down to Carteret County Speedway near Emerald Isle at the beach.
That.
And I went down there, and that didn't work out. Won't get into all that. I wound up at Franklin County Speedway. I worked with Whitey Taylor up there and all the crew, and that was the 50th anniversary season. I met a lot of great heroes of Southwestern Virginia racing, guys like Paul Radford, got to reconnect with him, Joe Thurman, Satch Worley, just a lot of the all-time greats there in Southwestern Virginia, and that was a real treat. So it had a good ending. We were able to give Franklin County a good send-off for its 50th season. But the circus deal, it never worked out. The two forces, the Germany, the Canadian, and the American forces, they were trying to, sounds like a war, right? They were trying to put all their money together and come to an agreement to put these shows on, and for whatever reason, it never worked out.
Right.
So there was 8 of us kind of left hanging. You know, we were kind of strung along for many months before we all started contacting each other and come to the conclusion this thing wasn't going anywhere, and we just cleared our calendars out from there and went on and did our thing.
Right.
And that opened the door for me to come back to Bowman Gray, and I'm really glad I did. You know, I had a great time and reconnected with everyone. It's like I'd never left, and it all's well that ends well. But that's why I wasn't there for that season. It had nothing to do with the management. I wasn't mad at anybody. It was just an opportunity of a lifetime for me to go audition for one of the largest entertainment conglomerates in the world. And, you know, I've always been a guy that wanted to be the ringmaster of the circus, and Bowman Gray Stadium gave me that opportunity.
That's what I always told people. I was the ringmaster at the circus.
I was the ringmaster and still am of the greatest show around turf. That's my little nickname for it. And that's trademark Randy Pettitt.
Did you trademark?
Trademark Randy Pettitt. So don't print your T-shirts and hats.
All you got to do is mail it to yourself.
But that's why I wasn't there. So thank you, Robert Collins, for very ably filling in. And Tim, I wanted to thank you for your friendship over the years, and I wanted to thank you for being on Rattling the Rollcage today and sharing a little talk about how you and I got hooked up at Bowman Gray Stadium. And we'll probably get together again and talk about some of the actual racing stuff a little more. Final thoughts? What do you want to say to all the fans watching out there?
Something that can survive over 70 years.
Since 1949.
Think about it. 70 years. And it all began because a paving bill wasn't paid.
Right. Pretty amazing.
Over and over, I think about that just because a guy skipped town, he didn't pay his share, which happens so much. The one thing that Francis brought to racing was some integrity.
Absolutely.
Because, the promoter, he'd have the guys out there racing, he'd have all the money of the people in the stands, and they'd go get paid after the race. Hey, where's the promoter? Oh, he done left.
Yeah.
With all the money, and they didn't get paid.
That went on a lot back in the day.
That happened a lot, but the France family brought integrity back to racing. And of course, there's a connection between Big Bill and the stadium.
Right.
He promoted with Mr. Hawkins, and Bill Jr. met Betty Jane.
His
She's
wife.
from Winston-Salem.
Yep.
I mean, the whole...
NASCAR has a huge tie and connection to Winston-Salem with Bowman Gray and with R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company and Goodies, headache powders, and many other corporate
The connections are uncanny, really.
They are.
There's some... they did a great thing on Fox Sports Net about the stadium, a little clip that Matt Dillner did.
I saw that.
And I think he won a couple regional Emmys. I can't remember. I think that's right. But, and it all, all the history. You walk in there, and I didn't mention this before, but this was before I was alive. My uncle owned cars that ran over there. The Myers brothers drove for him.
Okay.
But it was before my time.
That's pretty cool.
My aunt, she was involved in the sack races. We had pictures. They had the sack races that you get in put your feet in. I don't know if they
big burlap bag.
Big burlap bags, and she did those.
Yep.
So and some of the personalities that come out of the stadium, like Chocolate Myers.
Yep.
I mean he's the standard bearer as far as information. Plus he coined a term that I always think about the stadium is the drama.
Yeah.
It's got tons of drama that you don't have to create. You don't have to make it up. It just happens.
It does.
And
it happens when you least expect it.
And it happens when you least expect it. And sometimes you're standing right in the middle of it.
Oh, yeah.
And another neat thing before we wrap this up, it's neat to see the guys that came through, the K&N East guys, that now they're in Cup.
Yes.
And you got to interview them and watch them race, and now they're in Cup winning races.
Yeah.
I mean,
one of them's champion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you, before they ever made it, when they were, whipped behind the ears.
And Tim, that's part of what I enjoyed when I stepped away from Bowman Gray. I had an opportunity to announce the Hooters Pro Cup Series. I did television and track announcing for them. And I did a lot of Allison Legacy Series races with Donnie Allison and his family. And many of the top stars in the sport that ran trucks, Xfinity, and Cup, I got to know these kids. John Hunter Nemechek and I knew him when he was barely up to my knees, Ryan Blaney, Ryan could barely reach the clutch pedal in a car at Orange County Speedway. I mean, I've known a lot of these guys since they were teens and preteens, and that's been part of the fun for me is seeing these guys come up the ladder.
Oh, yeah, when they went, I think Larson was the first, Kyle Larson was the first Cup winner that I had.
Yeah, exactly.
And I sit there and I watched and I said, man, wasn't very long ago I was interviewing him at Bowman Gray Stadium. And
that's kind of cool.
I mean,
Chase Elliott won at Rockingham in the Pro Cup Series, and I did the television interview with him and his dad, Bill Elliott, and that's probably one of the highlights of my career as well.
Oh,
so I understand completely.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about people. You had Mike Joy and Darrell Waltrip came the year after I left. I was kind of I was kind of jealous of that.
I know.
Looking at the camera.
I was looking up the stands for you. Come on down.
Well, I didn't know they were there.
Yeah, I know.
But I didn't know they were going to come.
Yeah.
But I got to interview Junior Johnson.
Absolutely.
I got to interview the Woods. The funniest one was the Woods. I mean, they were great.
Yeah, they're great guys.
And we were standing there with, he just went in the Hall of Fame, and his wife was with him, and they were standing there. I was interviewing him, and she just blurted out, "Do you think it's going to rain tonight?" She said, while I was interviewing him and Glenn, and I said, well, if I could control the rain, I wouldn't have to drive a brown truck during the week.
You got that right.
and she just laughed, and everybody laughed.
Greg Harrison put you on salary.
But she, you know, just things like that you remember. And Glenn Wood was such a gentleman, and you think about when they used to come down 52 and win races.
Yep.
And same thing now with the Myers, which people get mad at me for saying this. I said it, I'll say it forever. The first family of Bowman Gray Stadium racing. I mean, can you imagine the amount of man hours that they had just to get to the racetrack?
And Tim, there's so many great families that have run Bowman Gray, and we're going to interview one of the great families, the Robertson family, one of the many great families, and we're going to have on all the Myers family together at some point, and that's part of what our show here, Rattling the Rollcage, is going to do for Bowman Gray. We're going to feature the legends of the Madhouse, many of the stars that you and I grew up watching and helped crown championships and talked about. We're going to have them on. In fact, over my left shoulder here, Philip Smith standing over there waiting to get on camera. So we're going to wrap things up.
There's a legend in the house.
Absolutely. Well, there's two right here too. And you know, I wanted to thank you. Bowman Gray was my baby when I left, and it was really hard to leave. And you know, I did it, rolled the dice. It didn't work out, but I had a lot of fun doing other things while I was gone. I spent more time with my kids for many years. You know, had some Saturday nights off with my family, and then I did get back into racing and eventually come back home, and it is home. And you know, on behalf,
Thomas Wolfe was wrong.
and I know you feel the same way. You know, we're going to look in this camera, and we just want to say thank you.
Thanks to all the fans and everybody that supports stadium racing.
Absolutely,
you're really special people, and thank you for letting us, you know, be here today.
Yeah,
and also the privilege of announcing to you. We may have made a mistake every now and then, but we had a great time, and we just thank you for being here.
And we know, listen, I've been to Las Vegas, I've been to Louisiana, I've been all over the country, and everywhere I go, Tim, I will bump into somebody that says, "Hey, you're the Bowman Gray guy," and you know it's really cool. It's very humbling, and
it feels pretty good.
It makes you feel like you're part of something really special. And me and you, we're two of the luckiest guys in the world. We've had the catbird seat over there for combined over 30 years, and again, I echo what Tim said. We want to thank all the sponsors, all of our Bowman Gray family, everybody from the folks that run the place, our officials, the track crew. Man, those guys and gals, they work their butt off.
The best track crew.
They don't get any credit a lot of times.
Go to another racetrack.
All the folks behind the scenes, the people that take the tickets, that print the program, all those competitors in the pits, the teams, all their sponsors, and most of all, Tim, all those great fans. I know I speak for you. We love you guys. We miss you guys. We hope you enjoy this show. Hit that subscribe button on Rattling the Rollcage so you won't miss an episode of all the great action we're going to talk about from Bowman Gray Stadium Racing. We're going to have NHRA racing. We're going to talk about Cup, Xfinity trucks, and I've got some monster truck stuff coming too, man. We're going to cover it all.
There's some great stories about that.
Absolutely, Rattling the Rollcage. On behalf of Tim McGuire, one of the legendary voices of the Madhouse, Bowman Gray Stadium, I'm Randy Pettitt, your host for Rattling the Rollcage. Thank you again to Turn and Burn Raceway Hobby Center right here in Midway, North Carolina. Thank you to our show sponsors, Vitamin C Shot. Look for it in your favorite convenience store and retail store near you. Vitamin C Shot. That's my secret to staying all amped up and well. Want to also say thanks to the folks at strutmasters.com for all their assistance and support. Thank you to Chip Lofton for everything he does for our show. Thank you to Rooster's Country Store. It's on Highway 66, just off Interstate 40. Our good friend Terry King. Go see him, Rooster's Country Store. You will not believe all the cool stuff he's got over there. And he's got a ton of great Bowman Gray Stadium stories too.
Don't forget about he used to race at Bowman Gray.
Absolutely, he'll talk about that too.
He sang the national anthem one
thank
night.
you to H&A Directional Boring and my friend Gary Causey for his support of our show. And thank you fans for watching Rattling the Rollcage. 30 plus years of Bowman Gray Stadium announcing and more great things to come here on Rattling the Rollcage.